September 20th will now be known as Nacho Alvarez Day, as the youngster gets 2 home runs and a key 9th inning RBI in Atlanta's 6-5 win over the Tigers. Let's talk about it.
This is the Braves Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Atlanta Braves. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into the Braves Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. That fella's Jake Mastroianni, host of Locked On Braves. Follow him on social media at shortstopball. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcasts, because this was a fun one, Jake. Atlanta Braves win this one 6-5. And I'm trying to decide, are we going to go with the Nacho Alvarez game, or are we going to go with Nacho Supreme? Because I've heard both. And I'm trying to figure out the right way to refer to what Nacho Alvarez was able to do today.
Yeah, Nacho Supreme sounds pretty cool there. I mean, what a day for the young kid. And I don't know, it was on the Postcast or the podcast. We record a lot of things. And I just talked about how the fact the power's never come for this guy. He didn't have much power even before the wrist injury. And here he is proving me wrong today, which the Braves like to do. And he's showing off the power. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Great stuff for Nacho. Big day for him.
Yeah, I believe those of us in the business call that slander works. We did that here last night. Answering the question about Ozzy, that was my little pivot there. We kind of got into it a little bit. I've also heard Nacho Man and Nacho Grande. We're obviously making him player of the game.
I do like Nacho Man. That's a good one too.
See, Nacho Man's not bad. He finishes the game 3 for 4, 2 runs, 3 RBI from the number 9 hole. Really kind of a frustrating offensive day for the Braves, simply because going into the 9th, you were sitting on 3 runs, and all of them came on home runs. I'm sorry, three hits, and all of them came on home runs. You did not have another hit until the Atlanta put up 4 singles in the 9th. And it feels like the talking point here, the conversation thing here is, do you think that the success in the 9th was because they were trying to do something different, right? Earlier in the game, I mean, obviously they're not striking out a ton. I think Atlanta had 4 strikeouts entering the 9th inning. They're not walking a ton. It almost felt like an old school Braves game where guys are trying to get into balls, launch home runs, aren't necessarily able to do it. And then in the 9th, we kind of get that new look Atlanta Braves thing that we've been seeing recently, where they're putting the ball in play, they're shooting it the other way, keeping the line moving, and they win the game. Do you think the 9th, did it feel like it was deliberate, or do you think that's just kind of coincidence?
I think some of the hitters that came up, like Ha-Seong Kim and Nacho, they are both guys that will shoot the ball the other way, and they're those types of hitters. I'll also say I know the Braves didn't have a lot of hits, but they did walk 6 times in this game. Like, I felt like they had some base runners throughout a little bit. But yeah, they weren't, doing enough with runners in scoring position, runners on base, certainly. But I just felt like in that 9th inning, it's your bottom of the order, but it was the right recipe for what you needed to get a rally like that going, because you had a couple of guys, who would do those things outside of Michael Harris and Sandy Leon. But the guys around them, particularly Ha-Seong Kim and Nacho Alvarez, and even Profar, which I think he pulled his ball through the right side for the hit. But you had a couple of guys there that could just punch a ball in play. And then Ozzy, obviously getting it started, his was a pulled ball as well, but he's just been so good down the stretch. So I think a lot of that was just the guys that you had coming up there. And I think it was probably I think they had some good at-bats throughout. They just finally started to get rewarded for some of those.
Yeah, I think that's probably kind of likely. Michael Harris in the 9th, 9-pitch at-bat, and he strikes out. And there's good and there's bad in here, right? He takes a changeup in for a ball. He takes a fastball down for a ball, but he does swing at a changeup kind of down and in, and the ultimate strikeouts on that swinging slider. I think, to your point, is looks like they were trying to have better at bats. Michael even walked. Like, that's back-to-back days with a walk. And I wanted to think maybe he's starting to turn a corner. Maybe he heard us on the show and he's starting to turn a corner. And then we had that strikeout in the ninth on a slider that was down almost in the dirt. Kind of made me realize, okay, well, maybe not. But also, like, all in all, I do think it was good at-bats up and down the lineup. Competitive at-bats, especially in the ninth inning.
Yeah, and the Michael Harris at bat too. I think he took the first 3 pitches. 2 of them were in the zone, and I'm thinking, well, what is happening here? Michael Harris is taking pitches.
Middle four-seamer was the first pitch, and he took it. And I'm like, no, that's your pitch, Michael.
First pitch fastball, then he took the changeup inside, like you said, and then he took a changeup in the zone as well. But then he did battle a little bit. Like, he got off some
stuff off.
They finally went to the slider, the back foot slider, which is a really good one. I mean, that's a tough pitch. We talked about Charlie Morton yesterday. I mean, that's a pitch that a curveball, but same effect to left there. But yeah, it seemed like, at least for Harris in particular, is trying to be a little bit more patient. And you got a week to kind of at least work on that now to into the off season. I said this on the podcast the other day, kind of ranted on it actually. That's all I would do this offseason on Michael Harris. I'm working on pitch recognition. I'm doing some sort of virtual AI where I'm seeing the ball come out of the pitcher's hand, something to get, because if that doesn't get changed and doesn't get fixed, you're Jared Kelenic. Like that is basically where you're headed, except for a better defensive center fielder, obviously. But hitting wise, I mean, that's what you could potentially be headed for, because
and a better guy in the clubhouse.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying. But that's got to get fixed for Michael Harris, because I still think the ceiling is super high for him, but he's got to get that corrected. So hopefully that is going to be something that he really does work on in this last week here, is just being a little more patient. And if you do fall behind in the count, being able to battle and working about, who knows what that long at bat with Michael Harris, did to have an effect maybe later in that inning as well with Will Vest. So it all kind of plays in. If it would have just been the 3-pitch at bat like we've seen before, that doesn't do as much to hurt the pitcher, but you make him work a little bit, maybe it has some sort of effect.
Exactly. All right. After the break, I want to talk about the pitching, both Joey Wentz and a really interesting pitching change of Atlanta's. We'll do that next, right here on the Braves Postcast. This episode is brought to you by Zippix Toothpicks. Whether you're looking for nicotine satisfaction or an energy boost, Zippix has you covered with their nicotine or caffeine-infused toothpicks. For nicotine users, Zippix provides a discreet way to satisfy cravings and that hand-to-mouth habit without smoking. Zippix can also be a helpful tool as you work to reduce your dependence on vaping. It's available in 6 great flavors with both 2 and 3 milligram nicotine options. And if you need energy without the crash, their caffeine toothpicks are a game changer. I use the caffeine toothpicks every weekend. I stay up to host MLB Game Night live here on YouTube at the end of the final West Coast game being done. Zippix toothpicks give me the energy without the jitters, and a bunch of really fun flavors. Cinnamon spearmint, bourbon flavor. They even have a peppermint watermelon. So go to zippixtoothpicks.com. Use code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. Now, must be 21 or older to order. And a warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. That's zippixtoothpicks.com, ZIPPIX, promo code LOCKEDON. Zip more, smoke less with Zippix Toothpicks. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in, because with football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately. It's such a fun and entertaining way to stay locked in for the NFL season. It's quick, it's easy, and honestly, kind of my favorite way to follow along with football. I do really enjoy it in the postseason as well, the MLB postseason, because you just know there's dudes out there who are going to step up in October, and it's fun to jump in there, check their projections, and be like, yeah, I think that's likely to happen. So download the Prize Pick app today. Use code LOCKEDINMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDINMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, Jake. So we're going to talk about the pitching a little bit, and specifically, there's one big thing that stood out to me that I want to discuss.
This is what you'll be talking about.
All right, so bottom of the 7th inning, Dylan Lee comes into the game, replaces Hunter Stratton. And Hunter Stratton technically gets charged with a blown save because he gives up a run on a hit, gives up actually a home run there. And Dylan Lee single to Jahmai Jones. He gets 2 strikeouts. Gleyber Torres, Winsell Perez. And with 2 strikes, with 2 outs, Snit comes out and pulls him for Pierce Johnson. And I suspect this is the whole Torkelson's a righty thing. And so instead of having lefty-righty, you go righty-righty. Pierce Johnson's doing his usual curveball thing, 6 curveballs and 7 pitches. But none of his curveballs are in the bottom third or below the zone. Everything is up. 2 of his curveballs and then the 1 fastball he throws are all above the zone. Like everything is up. And he leaves a curveball like thigh high and inside, and Torkelson turns on it and launches it for a 2-run homer. Is this maybe a situation where just trying a little too hard to treat this like a playoff game and get every single possible advantage in every single at-bat? So why not just leave Dylan Lee in for that one last batter?
Yeah, that's what it feels like. You're just, I mean, like I said, I think if it were a postseason game, you probably would. You go to the right-on-right matchup there, depending on the numbers. And I haven't looked at all the numbers of what Torkelson is, right-on-right and all that. But I assume it would be a tougher matchup and how he does against curveballs, because that's what Pierce Johnson's going to throw. So all that has to kind of play into your decision. It can't just be, oh, well, he's a righty, Pierce Johnson's a righty, let me do that. It has to, you have to factor in how Torkelson handles righties, how Torkelson handles curveballs, because that's Pierce Johnson's main pitch. It's also, and look, I know Dylan Lee hasn't had the greatest second half, but it's also a little bit telling if you don't trust Dylan Lee to just get out of it, work a clean inning himself, work a full inning, because he's more than capable of doing that when he's on. So that's the only thing I'd really kind of say about that is you probably were getting a little too cute, trying to treat it like a postseason game. It was also the 7th inning. Like, you were going to need somebody. I would imagine that maybe he thought Pierce Johnson gets that out. You bring him back out for the 8th inning. Sure. I'm assuming is maybe what he was thinking there. But yeah, I think we got to get back to the point. Dylan Lee's got to get back to the point where Snit can trust him just to get through an inning without needing somebody to come on right on right. Because, I mean, Dylan Lee's numbers overall, they are a little bit better against lefties, but they're pretty much, good against both sides. So he's got to be somebody that you can trust right, left to get you through a full inning.
Yeah. I kind of pulled the numbers while you were talking. Spencer Torkelson versus lefties is hitting 270 with a 541 slug. Versus righties, he's hitting 232 with a 436 slug. So the numbers say, on a handedness perspective, you want to do that. Now he is positive against curveballs by run value on StatCast +1, but against sliders he's better. He's like +2, and against fastballs he's +12. So why not get the guy that throws the thing of the 3 that he is the worst at, in this case, in the curveball? So go and dig it into it. I can see where it makes sense. I do think a little bit of this on my end, and I saw a lot of this on social media, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I think a lot of this is frustration because we see after the fact that it didn't work, whereas when you dive into the numbers, in reality, that was probably the correct decision to make. And like you said, playoff game, you're absolutely doing that. And I do think the plan was get him back through one more inning, and then they end up having to go Dylan Dodd and then Raisel Iglesias when they get the lead in the 9th. Little bit of an interesting situation there, but I do agree that Dylan Lee is ultimately the guy you've got to be able to trust to finish off an inning. It's not like he looked terrible. He got 2 strikeouts in the inning. It's just you got to be able to get that final out, and I think that's kind of a big deal there. So do you, I guess you were more of a believer than I was in the ability to actually get this win, right? Like, I had everything prepped here for a loss, and I had to scramble the 9th inning to get a thumbnail and a background up. Does this win, in this winning streak, we're now at 7 games, does this make you feel any better about if you bring back the core of this team next season, that when everybody's healthy, you're getting good pitching performances, your offense has almost all of its guys, minus Austin Riley, that you can look more like you're supposed to look, that more like the Atlanta Braves are supposed to look?
It's hard for me not to say yes in the moment, But I have to remember what I said a week ago when they were playing sluggish baseball and when they were losing these games to competitive teams. And at that point, I said, there's nothing they can do in these final 2 weeks to change my mind on that because of the competition.
Right.
But I also didn't expect them to win 7 in a row, and I expected them to still look pretty sluggish. And that's why we said before coming on, this game was fun. Like, this game felt different. Like, this is a postseason team you're playing. I know the Tigers, they've been struggling here lately. Mm-hmm. But this was a different feeling. Like, they had to fight. They had to come back in this one a couple of times. They were down early, came back, took the lead. They lost the lead. They had to come back and get it again in the 9th inning. That feels different. And that is a little bit more tangible of something that you can look at and say, okay, I mean, maybe this team is a little bit different, playing a postseason team, being able to battle back like that, show some fight, like we talked about in that 9th inning, changing up approach and at bat to just kind of shoot some balls the other way and keep the line moving. So that does give me a little bit of hope, but also got to remind myself, part of the competition they're playing right now, the Nats, a struggling Tigers team, and finishing up with the Pirates, and I can't let that just overtake what we've seen for 4 or 5 months of this season.
Yeah. I think for me, the process of it means maybe a little bit more than the fact that they actually won. Being able to see them flip a switch in the 9th. And granted, to your point, some of that was the guys in the order who were coming up, but flipping a switch in the 9th and being able to, just string together a bunch of singles and bring some runs in and get the lead. I think the way they did that made me feel good. And hey, this is now the flip side of the 0-7 start or losing streak to start the season. They've now flipped that on its end, and this is now back to, we should look at the record before and after those two ovens, like the 2 7-game streaks, and see what it is in the middle there. Still,
unfortunately, they've had a couple of 7-game losing streaks.
That's the hard part. So, yeah, they've had
I don't know which one you want to take out or look at in there, but yeah, they've unfortunately had a couple of those.
True. All right. Final game of the series tomorrow, Spencer Strider versus Casey Mize. Tiger on Tiger kind of matchup here. Clemson versus Auburn. Obviously, we're both big Auburn guys. Clemson is just dyed Auburn with a lake. But 1:40 p.m. Strangely, the way that Strider's pitched recently and the way that this series has gone for Atlanta, I'm surprisingly confident about this matchup. Am I just is this misplaced, or do you think that this is legitimately something the Braves can do here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good. I mean, you win 7 in a row. Like I said, I'm trying not to get too high on the riding the wave of the win streak here. But I mean, Strider overall, I mean, you look at his last 4 starts now, he hasn't given up more than 3 earned in a start. Now, some of those, just watching it visually, particularly this start against the Cubs 3 starts ago, didn't look great. But his last 2, I mean, he's looked fantastic, and even getting the strikeouts again. So I'm really interested to see what he can do. Obviously, going back out there, it's going to be fun. I'm really excited about him getting through this offseason, as we talked about, and getting to next year. But to be able to continue to realize you can have success with what you have here, I think is a very big mental hurdle for Spencer Strider, and knowing that his fastball, his slider, and throwing that curveball and maybe even the changeup occasionally a little bit more is enough to still be a really good pitcher, even if it's not maybe quite the elite pitcher that he was before. Right. So yeah, I mean, the Braves, certainly with the way they're playing right now and the way that Strider's pitched his last 2 outings, I feel pretty confident going into Sunday's matchup, which probably means they're going to lose, because that's how baseball works.
That's exactly how baseball works. Again, 1:40 p.m. Eastern, we will have your postcast right here afterwards. In the meantime, do us a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. There'll also be content coming from Locked On Sports Atlanta tomorrow because the Falcons play. For Jake Mastroianni, I'm Lindsay Crosby. Go Diamondbacks. Let's beat the Mets. And this has been the Braves Postcast.